This is a re-recording of the presentation that I made at the Global Women Conference on Gender Inclusive and Responsible Tourism held in Kerala in November, December 2024. I was asked to talk about gender inclusive tourism from a responsible tourism approach. So I began by reminding people of what's in the 2022 Responsible Tourism Charter, which talks about the importance of providing inclusive employment based on gender, as well as a number of other areas of diversity, providing more enjoyable experiences for everyone, including obviously women, through enabling more meaningful connections with local people to be formed, because only then can tourists understand the local history and culture and the social structure of the society, and also offering culturally sensitive experience based on respect between tourists and hosts. And that has to include respect for women, both as travellers and as people working in the industry in tourism. So it's both the hosts and the guests. So responsible tourism really starts from the perspective that we're taking our holidays in somebody else's home. That was the campaign that Tourism Concern in the UK ran so successfully for many years. The truth is that the destinations we go to are other people's homes. And as probably everybody listening to this knows, the main aim of responsible tourism is to make better places for people to live in and better places for people to visit. The political question that arises as a result of that is the question of whether the destination will be used by tourism, or whether people in the destination are able to use tourism for their sustainable development, primarily as an additional livelihood opportunity, but also a means perhaps of reinvesting in their nature or culture and in their heritage. It's a big opportunity for tourism to make a contribution, so long as the local community and its government are in charge of the forms of tourism and the impacts that tourism have in any particular place. So in this process of making sure that tourism meets the needs of the local community and enables them to achieve sustainable development using tourism as one of their livelihood activities, the critical question that then arises is whose voice is being heard. So way back in 2002 in the Cape Town Declaration and repeated in the Responsible Tourism Charter in 2022, we made the point that responsible tourism has to involve local people in decisions that affect their communities, their lives and their life chances. It's really important that the local community's voice is heard. And in Kerala, that's, I think, one of the reasons why responsible tourism has been so successful. The panchayats are critical to delivering responsible tourism, and in Kerala, the panchayats are strong. They are the local government units at the village and the groups of villages level, and they're predominantly run by women. So the opportunities to develop women-friendly tourism in Kerala are probably better than they are in many places because of the culture and the governance structures which exist. That said, I think what is exceptional about Kerala is the way a whole of government approach has been adopted across all departments and all levels of government. Now, people in the hall would doubt what I'm saying because there are bound to be some areas where that's not true. But in general terms, it's absolutely clear to me as an outsider, it's much closer to a whole of government approach happening in Kerala, with work happening between the panchayats and the state level administration in a way that you don't see elsewhere in the world. And in the conference, there were people there from the panchayats mixing and talking with senior people from the government structure and with MPs and so on. Very unusual situation to be in for me, where normally those two groups of people don't meet in the same room. These are some examples of the way in which Kerala markets its village life experiences, which are themselves extraordinary. But what you can see here is the role of women demonstrating their crafts, but also tourists learning crafts from people whose livelihood is benefited by being able to sell tourist experiences as well as continuing to do their pottery or their weaving. I particularly like the fighting demonstration being put on by two women from Kerala with two tourists from Kerala. The image on the bottom right is perhaps more traditional, but you can see from that selection of photographs that the opportunities for people to experience local life and to mix with women in Kerala is very strong indeed. So Kerala are global leaders in responsible tourism. There's no doubt about that. It began in 2007 when there were big issues about the way tourism was impacting negatively on local communities. 2008, the big conference, which I was first time I visited Kerala. Then the experiments, 2008 to 10, very unusual for a government to actually have proper experiments to see what worked, where and why. It was particularly successful in Kumarikam, and then they rolled it out to some more villages, and we were challenged in 2016 by the minister to demonstrate that it really was making a difference, and that's when the Kumarikam village census took place. That was so overwhelmingly positive in demonstrating the impact of tourism on local livelihoods and the change in the attitude of the local community towards tourists and the tourism industry, that in 2017 the minister launched the Responsible Tourism Mission, and really the responsible tourism movement in Kerala took off from there. 2023, the Responsible Tourism Mission Society was created, and a new Kerala Responsible Tourism Declaration, which is built on the principles of responsible tourism from the 2022 International Charter, was formulated, and it's the responsibility of the Responsible Tourism Mission Society to implement that strategy. But on top of that has come this commitment to extending tourism to benefit women, both to provide safe environments for women travellers to travel in, but also to involve women more extensively in the provision of tourism services and in the tourism industry. And the RT mission has identified 18,000 women-friendly tourism projects, and 70% of those led by women entrepreneurs. And I don't doubt that over time that number will increase. I looked back into my records to find this parts of this speech from Sabu Danya, who was the Panchayat president in Kumarikam. She was invited to London to speak at World Responsible Tourism Day at WTM in November 2011. And what's interesting about that speech is that she reflects on what it was like before responsible tourism and tells us about what it's like in 2011 once responsible tourism has begun to develop, particularly in Kumarikam. So thinking back, she says the tourism industry considered the Panchayat as their enemies, as Panchayat often had to fight with them on the issues of non-tax payment, unauthorised constructions and polluting the backwaters. Those were big issues in the early 2000s. The local population saw the industry as intruders into their territory. Then came responsible tourism, and it was providing, as she says, an additional income to more than 1,000 families in the Kumarikam Panchayat. More than that, she says, it was creating a very healthy relationship between the community, the local Panchayat, and the tourism industry. And she concluded her speech at WTM London by saying, "I feel very proud in stating before you that the RT initiative at Kumarikam has proved the potential of tourism to provide sustainable livelihoods to the local community. The success at Kumarikam," she says, "is the result of teamwork and the commitment to work together." This is an example, a real living example of the way empowering the local community to engage with tourism makes such a difference to the quality of the product. So, In the Kerala Responsible Tourism Declaration of 2023, it talks about empowering and involving the local community, but also about gender equality, safe destinations for women as hosts and guests. And it talks about that being the responsibility of the Responsible Tourism Mission, cooperating with the Panchayats and the UN Women and equations with the gender equality elements in all of its work. So that the objective of the declaration, the official state government declaration of 2023, was to deliver equality of access, not only for women, but also for the disabled as well, or in India, as it's referred to, the differently abled. So responsible tourism is increasingly spreading across India, originating out of Kerala because of the 2008 conference. But you can see here, WTM London in 2021, we actually had a panel involving 3 female leaders from different states to discuss exactly how that was happening. And the same policies have been rolled out into Madhya Pradesh, where they've also had a major initiative to encourage the engagement of women in tourism, but also to make sure that tourism is safe for women travelling alone. So I have no hesitancy in recognising Kerala as the global leaders in responsible tourism. It has become in Kerala a powerful movement for change involving the communities through the panchayats, the tourism industry and government in the state. That movement is beginning to have national and global impact, and we see some of that through the work of the ICRT India Foundation. Manisha Pandey leads that. The ICRT Global will continue to work with the Kerala Responsible Tourism Mission to share proven ways of making tourism better. Thanks for listening, and please attend to what's happening in Kerala in the development of responsible tourism, and you can probably best follow that by looking at the Kerala Tourism website, but also by following the blog posts from the Responsible Tourism Partnership and the ICRT Global on Substack. Thank you for listening.